Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Driving Innovation and Growth with the First National Standard for Flood Protection Products. My name is Dorota Aladdin, and I'm the Sector Propositions Manager for Personal Safety at BSI. In today's webinar, our guest speakers are Victoria McCausland from Environment Agency, Joe Wood and Richard Gurney from BSI. Vicky is a Senior Advisor in the Asset Standards and Engineering team at the Environment Agency. Her role as a technical lead for property flood resilience is to ensure installations are carried out to the highest standards and solutions are focused on the needs of the end user. Across 2021, Vicky is focused on the replacement of the current Environment Agency PFR procurement framework, ensuring a sound mechanism for the delivery of improved resilience. Vicky brings a wealth of experience to this role, having worked in flood risk management for 17 years across both strategic and local portfolios. Joe Wood is Kitemark Scheme Manager for flood-resistant products at BSI. Joe has been with the company for over 10 years, initially as Manager for Fenestration Kitemark Schemes, and in 2017, she took responsibility for flood protection products. She has several years of experience in product testing for both flood and fire extinguishers, and is trained as a continuous quality improvement and also certified as ISO 9001 lead auditor. Joe was also part of the committee responsible for development of the British standard BS 851188, which will soon replace PAS 1188. Richard Gurney is Group Certification and Laboratory Manager at BSI. He joined BSI in 1996 as a laboratory technician and then team leader of engineering laboratory. In 2007, he moved into certification. Richard has been involved in testing and certification of flood protection products since 2008. Richard also has been cooperating closely with Environment Agency since 2009. He sat on the working groups for PAS 1188 and BS 851188. Moving on to today's agenda, we'll give you an introduction to Environment Agency. Environment Agency framework, what's working and what isn't. Then we'll move on to BS 851188, the new standard overview and what it means for the manufacturers. Then we'll provide you with the main differences between BS 851188 and the PAS 1188. And finally, we'll take you through to the importance of the professional installation. Thank you again for joining us today. That's all from me. And now over to Vicky.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. So yes, I'm here today to talk about the Environment Agency's role in delivering PFR, and I think it's really important that we initially touch on the National Flood and Coastal Risk Management Strategy for England. This really does pick up on the delivery of PFR in a lot more detail than certainly I've ever seen in my career over the last 17 years. The strategy was published in September 2020, and it really does promote a strategic and operational direction for PFR. The overall vision for the strategy is looking at creating a nation that is ready for and resilient to flooding and coastal change, both today, tomorrow, but also into the year 2100. It sets out two real key scenarios for delivery of PFR. One being supporting people to build back better. So once somebody has flooded, how can we as a sector help them to recover more quickly? And it also looks at enabling communities and property owners that are at high risk of flooding to increase their resilience prior to flooding happening. And that's why our strategy really does promote PFR to the level that it does, to the fact that we've actually committed to two key measures to drive and mainstream property flood resilience, and to do that build back better work. If we could just move on to the next slide, please. Lovely, thank you. So what we actually have in place at the moment to deliver PFR is a commercial agreement, so a procurement framework from the Environment Agency between a number of consultants and contractors. So this framework's been in place since 2018 and is in place until 2022. And the framework itself is available to risk management authorities and others. A good element of the framework is that we can actually direct award for projects that are below £25,000. And it sets out very simple template documents that can be used and helps to drive consistency nationally. Whilst it is a framework that's been delivered by the Environment Agency, it can be used elsewhere in the United Kingdom, and we have experience of delivery, certainly in Wales, and interest in Northern Ireland as well. The framework itself has the three key lots for delivery. So it shows on your left-hand side there the lots that we have. So looking at survey, supply and installation, and then lot 3 is looking at survey, supply and install. And we also actually have a lot 4, which is a managing agent lot, which is there to really support people in delivery of a PFR scheme from concept all the way through to handover with the end user. If we go on to the next slide, I'll be able to kind of talk to you about what it is that we're working on over the next few months. So whilst I say that the framework is in place until 2022, we've actually taken the decision to update the framework early. And the reason for this is that the sector really is moving quickly. There's a lot of changes that have taken place over the last 12 months, be that the introduction of the new Code of Practice for PFR, but also the British Standard. And what we've done is we've actually reviewed the delivery of our framework, and we've got some real key drivers for change. And what's been noted is that PFR really is important to that end user. We have to look at PFR differently to a normal scheme that the Environment Agency or other risk management authorities may deliver, and that the focus has to be on the end user, that property owner, so that they understand what their risks are and how they can deliver moving forward. And we have a real drive to improve the reputation of PFR. People still see it as a substandard option. To help that, we need a framework that is easy to use. We need to improve our standards. And when we say improving standards, we really need to ensure that we incorporate the new requirements of the Code of Practice and ensure that the British Standard is embedded throughout the framework. That is certainly something that is incredibly important to us. And we notice that we have to obviously focus really on the customer to make sure that the right solution is being supplied for that homeowner. And what actually is really important is recoverability. When we talk about property flood resilience, a lot of people focus on the resistance measures such as doors, air bricks and barriers to try to prevent water entering a property. But the Build Back Better approach really needs to focus on what somebody can do to ensure that they get back into the property as quickly as possible. So we'll be working on the new framework over the next few months, and we hope to award our contracts in autumn this year. So just move on to the next slide, please. I'll be able to kind of touch on why we really do think standards are so important. So the DEFRA policy statement, which again was published last year, really does state that property owners really do need confidence in PFR solutions. People will be aware of issues that have happened nationally in terms of quick moving industry, product availability and workmanship. And what we have now is a real clear focus on standards. We have the Code of Practice now in place, which really does set out the journey from concept through to handover to the homeowner. And we now have the new national standard, so the BS 851188, which really does improve the standards of products for the resistance measures. And it's vital that we embed that into our framework. We need to ensure that government funding is used in the correct way, and that it is used to really ensure that homeowners do see a better output for the customer. So one of the questions will be, well, how are we doing this? So on the next slide, I have set out some of the processes that we are going through. So if we just move on to that slide now, if that's okay. So we really need to remember that PFR isn't a new concept, and we have had a framework in place for a number of years now. And it's about collaboration to ensure that the new framework does everything that we need to do to ensure that the customer gets the right solution. In doing this, we have set up a number of working groups, and this slide summarises these 5 groups that we have developed. And the purpose of these groups is to really focus on the standards of the new Code of Practice to ensure that our framework delivers what is required to meet the standards, and also gets more information in there about actually what is working well already and where is it that we think we need to make some changes. So we really are working collaboratively through this process. The way that you can be involved is obviously being involved with some of these working groups. We have a number of people involved there, and you can also sign up to our mailing list. I know at the end of the presentation, my information will be available. If people would like to sign up to our mailing list, then obviously just drop me a line and we can add you to that. And importantly, in terms of delivery, the more people that we have on our framework, the better we will be able to supply to our customers. We really hope over the next 6-year programme that we can double our delivery of PFR, that this is a solution that will work for people. So you could be a consultant or a contractor on our new framework. If that isn't the case, as a supplier, you can have products that have certification to BS 85 1188, which will therefore be able to be used via the Environment Agency procurement framework. So in terms of timescales, the next slide sets out the process that we will go through. So at the moment, February and April, we're working on our second phase of consultation, and that is the framework development, where we're working with our working groups to get that detail as to what it is that we think needs to be incorporated into the new framework. And as mentioned earlier, we hope to award a contract in September, October time, so early autumn. And through November and December, importantly, is making sure that the framework itself is advertised so that we get a greater take-up of the framework and ensure that people are trained into how to deliver the framework effectively. That's a very, very quick run through the work that we're trying to do to better deliver PFR for our communities. Obviously, if you'd like more information, my email address is there and you can get in contact after this seminar. Thank you. What I'm going to do now is hand over to Jo, who will be able to take you through the new British Standard. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Good morning, all. As previously mentioned, my name's Jo Wood, and I'm the BSI Certification Manager responsible for the flood resistance kite mark scheme to PAS 118 at the moment, and to the new British Standard BS 851188 when that comes out, when that's ready. I'm going to give you a brief outline of the changes from the PAS to the BS. So basically, this is going to be a quick summary and an overview. BS 851188 was published on the 30th of September 2019 and officially launched in Chiswick, London on the 2nd of October 2019. PAS 1188-2014 was revised by a drafting subcommittee of the main BSI committee, CB 501, during 2018 and 2019. And that subcommittee was made up of a number of key flood industry professionals, representative of those of the interested parties, and there's a list of those there for you. Wider industry support input was sought via a series of workshops prior to and during the drafting process, with support for the publication of a British standard that better simulates real-life flood conditions and use. And some of you may have attended that. The ongoing development of standards is essential in the evolution of the flood industry and supports manufacturers' continuing innovation and investment in producing effective flood resistance products. The standard was written for the UK but is applicable to other markets, and as one of only 2 published flood resistance standards, puts the UK flood industry in a very good position. It is anticipated that as a British standard, BS 851188 will have more gravitas than its PAS predecessor and will garner more interest globally, allowing UK-based manufacturers more opportunities to trade outside of the UK. PAS 1188-2014 to BS 851188-2019. So in general, there have been some changes to the terminology. Significantly, the term protection has been replaced with resistance to better reflect the scope of the standard and to align this with other key publications, including the Syria Code of Practice and Guidance for Property Flood Resilience. The previous 4-part PAS has been rationalised into 2 parts. PAS 1188 Parts 1 and 3 have been combined into BS 851188 Part 1, building products incorporating building aperture products, building skirts and wall sealants systems. So in summary, products designed to offer property-based flood resistance. PAS 1188 Parts 2 and 4 have been combined into BS 851188 Part 2, perimeter barrier systems incorporating temporary and demountable products. In summary, products designed to resist flooding away from property. Okay, so the key changes. So the scope of the standard has been extended. The maximum height of the designated maximum water depth, so that's the DMWD that we test to, has been removed to allow products that are capable of meeting greater design depths to be tested where testing facilities exist and where buildings have been designed to withstand greater depths. There are some important changes to documentation and how this is evaluated in conjunction with the testing to ensure suitability of use. So there's improved requirements for installation, deployment and user manuals with the end user in mind, and installation and deployment under test conditions to be carried out in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. And the testing is better simulates real life conditions. So new testing requirements prior to the leakage tests to ensure that products can perform as a flood resistant product after continuous use of its primary function, i.e. windows and door sets. And additional test requirements during leakage tests to simulate real life exposure to flood conditions. Okay, so new test requirements prior to the leakage testing. Durability of windows and door sets. This is the first of the new test requirements. With windows and door sets undergoing 5,000 cycles of repeated opening and closing in accordance with BS-EN 1191. No adjustment should be made to the window or door set before or during the subsequent leakage test. And the reason for this is that the additional requirement to ensure that windows and door sets can continue to perform as a flood resistant product after continued use as its primary function. And obviously the importance of a comprehensive maintenance programme to ensure the ongoing effectiveness of flood windows and door sets should be considered. Now, test requirements prior to leakage testing. Operating forces for windows and door sets. This is the second new test requirement. So for windows tested in accordance with BN 12046-1 and door sets tested in accordance with BS-EN 12046-2, the measured operating forces for all procedures shall not exceed 10 Newton meters for the lever handle and 5 Newton meters for the finger operation. Measured operating forces shall be determined before leakage tests, and when the leakage tests take place, the operating forces of the door in situ shall not exceed the allowable maximum. And a flood resistant door set shall be able to be activated both externally and internally. And the reason for this is to ensure the ease of operation by all intended users and to ensure installers adhere to manufacturers' design specifications and do not exceed the design requirements. Health and safety considerations regarding access and egress are still key. Additional leakage test requirements, so this is a significant change, the dynamic impact test. So the inclusion of a dynamic impact testing for both parts of the new standard during the leakage testing cycle. Part 1 products are impacted with a 30 kilo leather bag of sand and Part 2 products with a 50 kilo Scots pine log, and measurement of permanent deflection and leakage for 1 hour after impact. And the reason for this is firstly to ensure that the flood resistant product can effectively withstand potential impact under flood conditions and maintain allowable leakage requirements. And secondly, to align this with the US standard FM 2510, which tests Part 1 products by impact of a swinging log and Part 2 products by impact of a floating log. Additional leakage testing requirements for Part 2 is of an overflowing test. So the new test requirement, Part 2 products only, is inclusion of an overflowing test for Part 2 temporary and at the moment demountable products only. Water overflows 25 millimetres above the top of the barrier for 1 hour, and the barrier shall not float, overturn or experience catastrophic failure if the water level should exceed the height of the barrier. Again, permanent deflection shall be less than 150 millimetres, and the reason for this is to ensure the structural stability and continued safety of these products under extreme flood conditions. So basically also to align BS 851188 with FM 2510. How does this work with the Environment Agency PFR procurement framework? As discussed by Vicky earlier, it's hoped that the proposed changes to the EA PFR procurement framework will drive innovation and development in the flood industry, increase demand for testing and certification of flood resistance products, which ultimately will improve the quality and performance of flood resistant products for end users, and increase the uptake of quality flood resistant products where the general public are increasingly great need of. Okay, thank you for listening. I'll hand you over to my colleague Richard Gurney to talk about the importance of quality installation.
Thank you, Jo. Good morning, everybody. So I'm just going to spend the next couple of minutes talking to you about the importance of professional or competent installation of flood resistance products. In simple terms, if a good product is incorrectly installed, the chances of failure are vastly increased. This has indeed been the case and has led to mistrust towards the industry as a whole. Disgruntled end users are entitled to ask why their product, which may be certified, has failed in their time of need. And let's not forget that some of these are family homes, may have been previously flooded before, only to have to go through the same again when they believe they've mitigated the risk. All property installation products should of course start with a property level survey that's preferably been carried out by a suitably qualified and competent individual. These surveys should include, but are not limited to, the property details including its use, type, construction and listed status, the flood history of the area situated, the risk and likelihood of flooding including the flood type and depth, and of course all points of potential water ingress and other vulnerabilities. So now it's time to decide which products apply to a given property. There are many choices, and what is suitable for one may not be so for another. For example, if a property is left uninhabited, the choice may be to opt for products that are passive and need no further deployment once they've been installed. And these may include a flood door, a self-activating air brick cover, or a snorkel vent type product. Alternatively, there are products on the market where physical effort is required to deploy the product and is often the preferred choice due to maintenance issues. Following industry concerns regarding the quality of some installations, the kite mark was extended to cover the installation of kite mark flood resistance products. In general terms, it includes all stages from survey through to selection of products, installation, and a final wet test of installed products. Now, this scheme has been dormant actually for the last few years, but it is really something that we at BSI want to press ahead with again. As already touched on, the biggest issue we are trying to address here is the competence of the individuals undertaking the product installation, as this seems to be the area of greatest concern. It is not enough to state that a once attended training course or an online assessment is sufficient. First and foremost, the training needs to be relevant. It also needs to be ongoing and to take into account innovation and new products to the market. BSI will therefore undertake regular and ongoing assessments of all individuals. The scheme is open to all, either as an individual or as an organisation, but the requirements will remain the same for everybody. So, in summary, those companies who successfully meet the scheme requirements will receive a kite mark certificate that states compliance to the scheme. But as already stated, it does not cover non-kite mark products. It is also well worth noting that maintenance of installed products should be considered. We all know that most are not, and in the case of products which have seen a lot of wear and tear, such as flood doors on their primary sills, advice really should be given when an end user is deciding what is best for them. At the end of the day, a product that has suffered wear and tear may perform no better than a badly installed product in the event of a flood. So that's it from me. I think this is the end of the presentation from us all now, and it's over to any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for some great insight and on such an important topic, particularly at the current time. I can see that question has been coming, so let's see what we can do to answer some of those. So the first question, what provision is there for testing to the new standard? Richard, would you like to take this question?
Yes, currently there are 3 laboratories which are open to use for everybody. That is HR Wallingford, where we can subcontract the work directly to HR Wallingford. they're certainly in a better place to do the really big stuff, the demountables and temporary, due to the size of their facility. But also we have the facilities of Aquabex and M3, which, although themselves are both manufacturers, BSI attend and witness and supervise all testing so that it keeps its independence.
Thank you very much, Richard. The next question, do you think there will be a large uptake on the new standard? Maybe Joe can answer this question.
Okay, thanks, Dorota. We certainly hope so. Quality flood resistance measures are badly needed, and with the support for certified products coming from the EA, this can only help. Other key flood publications mentioned earlier, such as the Code of Practice and Guidance for Property Flood Resilience, also supporting this as well now. And as previously mentioned, with the BS being one of only 2 published flood standards, we're seeing considerable interest from a number of European manufacturers. So that's interesting.
Thank you very much, Joe. The next question, how does the Environment Agency plan to phase in the new Kitemark product? Vicky, maybe you can answer this one.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. So as I've mentioned, the new framework will be in place by autumn this year, and we have real confidence by working closely with BSI and suppliers in regards to new products coming online onto the market. I'm working really closely with our suppliers to ensure that we are aware of when products do have the full British standard in place, and we will continue engaging with our project clients and our framework providers to ensure that when this does happen, that those products are prioritised over products that are tested to the standard of the PAS 1188 or hold a PAS 1188 certification.
Thank you very much. The next one, what do you see as the biggest challenge in implementing the new standard and code? Maybe Richard?
Yeah, no problem. I think at the moment the biggest problem we have are the water depths that the 3 current facilities can currently go to. I mean, we're stuck at about 1 metre maximum, so anything above that at the moment is no go, which is a shame. But also the overtopping test is going to be a challenge, because if somebody has a temporary barrier that's 1.5 metres high, none of the facilities can do the overtopping test. Now, this only affects Part 2 products, but it's something that we'll probably have to look into again with the committee. The only other challenge I really can think of at the moment, of course, is cost to industry, because, you know, it's quite expensive testing. We all know that, and obviously the industry has to absorb that cost. And they're the main challenges I can see at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. The next question, what will happen to the previous flooding victims who had PFR poorly installed and failed, such as Kendall? Now that we have a new code of practice, what can be done to revisit those properties and rectify the shoddy workmanship? Maybe Victoria or Richard?
Yeah, thank you. This is a really important point, and I know Richard mentioned it in his part of the presentation. And this really does cement why the Code of Practice and the updated standards are now in place, and that it's to stop this poor delivery from happening. We are certainly doing a lot of work in this area. We're aware that since 2008, 23,000 public funded installations of PFR have happened, and our work via the DEFRA funded Pathfinders and work on a flood compliance platform is really helping us get a better picture of these installations to what has happened. Unfortunately, I can't comment on, obviously, on individual locations or properties, but it's really important that we fully understand the full journey of a PFR installation, and that it isn't just a case of once the installation has been carried out that we move away from those communities. I think it'd be important that we really have a lessons learned process in place for all schemes so that we can understand what is working well and what hasn't worked well. And obviously where we have identified particular issues, that those can be raised nationally to ensure that they don't happen again. Rich, I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to to add to that situation there?
Only, of course, that where there have been instances of a flagrant breach of the kite mark, BSI do act, and whether that means getting trading standards involved, etc. We do everything we can, but when there's a flagrant breach, it's very difficult to deal with. And of course, there are going to be those out there that will do these things, but we just act as appropriate.
Thank you very much, both Richard and Vicky. The next question: has any product been awarded with BS 851188 standard yet? Joe, maybe you can take this one.
Yes, thanks, Dorota. No, the kite mark scheme is still in its transition phase at the moment, with that period set to end at the moment on the 1st of May. But we do have a significant number of tests planned for the coming months, and we'll be monitoring that situation closely.
Thank you very much. The next question: if grace period ends on the 1st of May, how many certified flood protection products will exist in the UK? Joe, I think if you could just take this one as well, that would be great.
Yeah, this sort of leads into that, doesn't it? Yeah, as I say, at the moment we haven't commenced testing, but it's imminent, and we have a large number of tests planned. So we hope that that when that grace period ends, that we will have a number of certified flood products. And we will certainly review the transition date nearer that time if that becomes necessary.
Thank you very much, Joe. The next question: certain products certified to pass 1188 will not pass BS 851188. Kite mark products are still stipulated on tender documents. If it's possible that is it possible that some of those products will be in the process of being purchased, but will be uncertified by the time they will be installed or needed? How does that panel feel about that? Vicky, maybe you can take this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is absolutely the case. Obviously, we have a framework in place at the moment which does specify that products need to have the PAS 1188 used. The change to the new framework isn't about slowing down delivery of PFR. It really is vital that we continue to better protect our communities. So any schemes that are in tender at the moment or within the next couple of months obviously will be focused on the current scope within our framework. But as I mentioned earlier, I will be working very closely with our suppliers and our project clients within the Environment Agency and lead local flood authorities to ensure that if new products do come onto the market with BS 85 in place, that we'll be engaging with them to ensure that we can be flexible to use that standard. I think it's worth noting that the whole point of the framework is to ensure that we are using products that are using the recognised national standard, and the current framework does have that flexibility in there regarding testing to the standard of PAS 1188, but also other standards as well. So obviously the BS is a better standard to PAS 1188, and where those products do come online, we will be prioritising those. And like I say, we'll do that via very clear communication through our framework and with our clients.
Thank you very much, Vicky. How can the flood industry and flood industry regulators lobby government on zero rating VAT on flood products that are BSI kite mark? I think, Vicky, this one could be directed to you.
Yeah, and it's a really, really good question. And this has come up a number of times in the discussions that I have with people. And now really is the perfect time for issues such as this to be raised, in that on the 1st of February, DEFRA published a call for evidence on local factors for managing flood and coastal risk management and property flood resilience. Part 2 of that, which is that focus more on the policy level changes that might be needed to accelerate PFR uptake, and having a look at specifically funding. So there's an entire section within the call of evidence looking at funding, and I really would encourage people to view that consultation and provide feedback. The consultation itself closes on the 29th of March, and you can access it obviously via DEFRA's consultation page, which is on Citizen Space, A really quick Google search will bring that up if people are struggling to find that on gov.uk. Or again, if people get in contact with me, I can provide a link for that. If there's Environment Agency staff on the call today as well, and they'd like to find out more about how we are feeding into that process, and just give me a call and I'll be able to update you on that.
Thank you very much. I think the next one will be also for you. Will the Environment Agency be adopting BS 851188 leakage rates when compiling upcoming project specifications?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Environment Agency will be embedding every element of BS 851188 into the new framework. What I think is really important is that people remember the role of property flood resilient products, is that engagement is really vital going through the journey of PFR installation, and it's really critical that people understand what PFR can do and what it can't do. As with any solution that a risk management authority is installing, PFR reduces the risk of flooding to a property. It doesn't take the risk away, and there will always be that chance that leakage may occur, the product could be overtopped, or there could be a failure. So leakage is really, really important. We would expect a level of leakage at properties, which is why the full solution for a property is likely to include the use of sump pumps or puddle pumps, which is why it's so important that the full solution is looked at and not individual properties. So for me, the very simple answer is yes, but really reiterating how important it is to fully understand what PFR can and cannot do.
Thank you very much. The next question, what guidance is in place to outline the parameters that PFR measures required to operate, i.e. the dwelling construction, the PFR measures are installed within and outlining the limitations of the measure?
Yeah, absolutely. So this really does drive us back to the information that is within CIRIA's Code of Practice. The Code of Practice sets out 6 standards for delivering PFR, and this question really relates to Standard 2, which focuses on the property survey. This requires a full assessment of the property itself, including its construction, as well as the requirements of the end user. And the new framework itself that we're working on is going to embed the standards of the PFR Code of Practice within there, and will include a full specification for what is required within this property survey. It's really, really important as well that we note the overriding principles of the Code of Practice, which is about providing all information to the end user. And I know I've mentioned a number of times through the presentation that the end user, so that property owner, is critical. And we need to make sure the information that we're providing for people is user-friendly and that they can see that. If people did want to get more information about the Code of Practice, it is free of charge to download from CIRIA's website. And we've also provided some presentations on there as well that can summarise those requirements for you. But the guidance document of the Code of Practice certainly sets out that guidance for people.
Thank you very much. The next question, how will the new standard improve confidence and uptake of products? I think, Jo, maybe you can take this one.
Okay, thanks, Dorota. Yeah, well, we certainly hope it will improve confidence and uptake of products. The new standard obviously takes into account real-life conditions and use, and the additional requirements to simulate these, it's felt is going to significantly increase confidence in the products that are tested and certified. So the uptake of certified quality flood-resistant products is better supported by the EA PFR framework, and it's all interlinked, I think.
Thank you very much, Jo. The next question, when will truly independent test facilities be available in the UK to test products to the new standard? Richard, maybe you will take this one?
Yeah, no problem. As touched on earlier, we've got the 3 facilities at the moment, HR Wallingford, where the products are just sent for testing to Wallingford. It's what they do. They're experts in their field, and they then supply BSI test reports for the products tested. So I think this question is truly aimed at where BSI use the Aquabex or M3 facilities for testing. and it's somehow a misconception is that it's not independent test facilities. But actually, when this testing is being undertaken, at every stage, BSI are there supervising the testing and actually taking all the measurements. You know, this isn't M3 or Aquabex taking the measurements. This is us, BSI, the engineers. You know, we also issue the test report. It's a BSI test report. So the test report doesn't come from Aquabex or M3. So, you know, this is truly independent testing. BSI are there to oversee and manage everything.
Thank you very much, Richard. And the final question for today, with this new standard, does it offer an advantage with insurance companies? Maybe Vicky, you can take this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think we need to think about the delivery of PFR wider than just the British standard as well here. I think this really does link back to the code of practice elements as well, and that the process that a installation would go through would include a post-installation report. That post-installation report is critical to the homeowner because it will set out what their risk is before installation and what it is now that products have been installed and other recoverability measures that have taken place. And this report is something that people will really be able to use with their insurance companies to discuss how it could have a benefit for them. We're only human, aren't we? And people will love to have a saving. And I think this is a really important time for the insurance industry and how PFR fits into that. And just to drop in another consultation that is happening is at the beginning of February, there is also a published consultation on potential changes to the flood relief scheme, which is looking at that offer of discounted premiums and the Build Back Better kind of initiatives. And the proposals that Flood Re have kind of put forward through that consultation would really benefit homeowners that have had PFR installed and would potentially really help drive PFR delivery as well. And I think when we start thinking about how properties have taken into account PFR measures, obviously if a product has been put in place that has that additional confidence because it has got the certification on products, that is only something that can be seen as positively. So it'll be really, really interesting to see the outcomes of that consultation. And again, if people want to see that, a really quick Google on Desford Citizen Space page will bring up that consultation for people to respond to.
Thank you very much, Vicky. I think that's all we had time for today. And I would like to thank all our speakers today for their time. And thank you again for joining us today and hope to see you soon again. Thank you. Goodbye.